Have you ever felt that you as a woman may not appear to measure up when you see incredible women in strong roles? You may be surprised when hearing from women in these positions and how we all share many of the same challenges. Thank you for joining us for the SheEO Lead-In podcast with Rebecca Jones as we share the journeys of women.
Hello, I'm Rebecca Jones, your host of SheEO Lead-In. We are on an exploration together to discover more about the personal journeys of incredible women in both career and life. We all have paths to share that sometimes take incredible turns, deep resilience, and courage to navigate. My hopes are that the challenges shared here encourage women to take leaps of faith and growth when a journey feels too difficult or unachievable. There is great strength deep within each one of us. These stories are meant to share the ways strong women have taken their dreams to strive and thrive to new heights, despite their sometimes rocky paths, and found a way to lead in. Welcome to SheEO Lead-In. Today we are here with Leighangela Brady, the Superintendent at the National School District. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you? Thanks for having me on the show.
Well, I'm excited to hear all about your story. So tell us a little bit about how long you've been doing your job and kind of what led you to it.
Sure. So this is my 8th year as a superintendent in the National School District. Before that, I spent about a decade in East County, in Cajon Valley, and in Santee as a teacher leader, and my first administrative vice principal job. And then I went up to North County, and I was in the Encinitas Union School District, and I was a principal there and an assistant superintendent there for about 8 years. And now I'm down in South County as the first ever female superintendent for the National School District.
So you've been all over the county. That's wonderful.
That's right. I love San Diego County, and each of our different regions are very different. And so I've been very lucky in my career to have experienced all areas of the county.
I love that. So tell us a little bit about your childhood. Do you have a fun story you'd like to share with us?
Oh, I don't know about a fun story, but I had a really interesting childhood. I was born in Connecticut, so I was born and raised in Connecticut. And my parents weren't getting along very well when I was born. So they were divorced when I was very young, and my mom was also very young. We're almost like siblings. I remember a time where I was 4, my sister was 6, my brother was 8, and he was in charge. And my mom was working several jobs, just trying to make ends meet. And so I did a lot of watching and observing and problem solving, and I learned a lot from my mom and from those early years. There were times where we didn't have any food in the refrigerator. We were going from neighbor house to family house just to eat dinner, or for someone to maybe watch us late into the night so my mom could go back to school. But I think from those experiences, I learned a lot about resiliency, and, when somebody says you're on your own, your true leader comes out, right? And so there were a lot of those times growing up, I can remember.
So wait, what was the birth order you were in?
I was the baby. Okay. So my mom, I hope she doesn't listen to the podcast, but maybe she wouldn't be so upset if I told you that when she was 16 years old, she got on the back of my dad's motorcycle, drove to another state, and got married. And then she came home and lived in her home because she really wanted to marry my dad, but she had to have her parental consent because you couldn't get married before 18 in Connecticut at the time.
Right.
So at 17, she graduated high school early, and she married my father. She had her first baby at 18, second baby at 20, and I was her third baby right before she turned 22.
Wow, that is a lot of kids in a short amount of time. But that's how it really was. That was the generation. So a lot of parents were like that, I think.
It was, but she gave up a scholarship to go to school so that she could get married and live with my dad. She wanted nothing else than to raise a house full of children. But when it didn't work out with my father and they got divorced, she found herself very young, no education, no skills, and 3 very small children. And so she really had to turn her life around and change the trajectory of where her life was heading. And so I'm one of 5 siblings. With my stepfather, when he came in, they adopted 2 more children. So there are 3 boys and 2 girls. And for the girls in particular, my mother always said, when you grow up, I want you to get an education or pursue your passion, pursue some sort of a skill. And if you want to stay home and raise your babies, I want that to be your choice.
Right.
But don't ever rely on someone else, because she found that was difficult to kind of overcome.
Definitely. Okay, so switching gears, one word that describes you the best, what would that be?
I think I would probably use the word optimistic. You know, I've navigated a lot of challenges, but every single challenge or something that's negative that's happened, I always see the positive or the learning opportunity from it. And so I think as a leader, we can get stuck in the negative things that happen, or we can use those opportunities for growth, to learn, and to actually make something better.
Great. So your current career, you're a superintendent. Where did you start in education, and how did you what was that path like?
Well, to be honest, growing up, I always wanted to be a dentist.
Did you?
I think I loved my hygienist. She was just amazing. I also like to talk a lot, and I thought, oh, here's an occupation I can have where I can do all the talking and they can't even talk back. I don't know.
Right. One-sided conversation.
One-sided conversations. And then I wore braces from the time I was in 2nd grade. I had an issue with my jaw and had to get braces, and I wore them for 9 years and still wearing Invisalign to this date. And I thought, this is going to be my future career because I spent so much time at the dentist office. But in high school, I struggled a little with science. I know some people really love science, and while I love it, I wasn't very good at it. So my mother said, well, you should not be a dentist because you're going to have to do a lot of science, but you're really good in math. So my suggestion is you become an accountant. So when I went to college, I actually studied accounting till my senior year in college. And I started looking around, right, as I was entering senior year, and thought, there's nobody that I'm friends with in college that are in my major. And I realized that it was a career full of introverts. And remember that one-sided conversation? No accountant wants the chatterbox in the office having the one-sided conversation while they're trying to figure out those numbers. And so everybody kept asking me if I were a teacher or an actress. Sometimes they asked if I was an actress, but if you're a teacher, you have to be an actress. And I just felt this deep calling to switch my major senior year in college to become an educator. And from there, I've just really been traveling that path of being called to help more and more students along the way. So from classroom, I could only help the kids coming through my classroom. Right. So I left to become a site administrator and became a principal. And then I realized I can only help the kids that are in my school. So then I went to the district office and became an assistant sup, and realized that I wanted to be the one maybe that could set that vision and make those decisions. And I wanted to do it in a district that really needed me, where kids were having the same start in life that I had, so I could show them that, with the right mindset, they could change the trajectory of their life. And so that brought me to national as superintendent.
So kind of interestingly enough, when you said accountant, I thought, that does not fit your personality. I was thinking, oh yeah, no, I don't think that would work out. And no offense to accountants, just really you are very vivacious and very warm. And I do see you working with, in some aspect of kids and helping and all of that. I mean, it makes perfect sense. And I hope the listeners really understand that really you do need to find a career that fits your personality, and we're not all the same. That's the beauty of it. Anytime I talk to kids, I tell them, you and your friends might have completely different careers, and that's okay, because most of the time you don't all want to do the same thing. I actually wanted to be believe it or not, an animal doctor. Yes, I wanted to be, something like maybe a farrier or something like that. Anyway, and then I realized I would have to perform things that would be like blood involved and stitches and all that, and went, oh yeah, I don't think that's actually going to be for me. That's not going to work out. So,
Well, I have a geriatric dog, so if you ever get that, desire, you want to come and help an animal, you can come and, babysit, take him for the walk around the block that takes now 40 minutes.
oh my goodness, that's funny. So, success is very different to each one of us. How do you measure success for yourself?
So for me, it's never been about hitting a target, specific position, or a certain amount of money. I think success for me is seeing the impact of the work that we do, right? So I'll give you an example. I'm going to have to back up and give it a little personal background. Back in 2020, we had the Eric Paredes Save a Life Foundation come to our school district, and they donated 13 AEDs. And they did a sidewalk CPR training for all the fifth graders at one of my schools. And I was there for that presentation. That was a Friday, March 6th.
I was going to ask you on timing, so it was right before everything shut down.
Was right before. Wow. And 4 days later, so that was a Friday, Monday night into Tuesday morning, in the middle of the night, my husband suffered a cardiac arrest. So I woke up. I saw him in distress. I knew something was wrong. I woke up my 18-year-old son at the time. He came in, got on the bed, held his father, and said, "What's wrong with Dad?" while my husband took his last breath and his heart stopped. But I had just seen a life-saving technique 4 days earlier, and I was able to help coach my son to start CPR while I called 911. And within about 8 minutes later, my son had done CPR for 8 minutes. The paramedics and the fire department, they arrived. They performed life-saving CPR, used the AED, and my husband is alive today because of that.
Wow.
Of course, that was the same week we shut down schools for COVID, talk about the amount of stress and all of the different things happening in my life at the time. Well, 4 years later now, I have been on this quest to make sure that every single one of my students, every single one of my staff are prepared for a cardiac emergency. You've seen Damar Hamlin. You saw Bronny James. I think what pushed me really over the edge to make it happen was there was a little girl in Chula Vista, 13 years old, playing soccer and died of cardiac arrest because there wasn't an AED. And that was just May of this year. And to me, that's just unacceptable. So we've been working for the last 6 months or so, really trying to put these plans in place. And on Valentine's Day, we became the first ever elementary only school district, heart-safe district in the nation. So when you ask, how do I measure success? I think success comes in being able to pull everybody together around this, something that's really important, a common goal, and to not just achieve it, but to achieve it with distinction so that everybody feels like they were a part of something really big.
And being the first.
And being the
That's
first.
pretty incredible.
A lot of times they save CPR for the high school kids because they think they're bigger, stronger, and little kids can't do it. But little kids are learning their numbers and they need to know how to call 911. And little kids are learning their letters and they need to know what an AED are. Little kids know how to run really fast, probably faster than we can run in our heels, right? So you run to the nurse's office or run down to the field and grab the AED. And I always tell kids, you may be little now, but you're going to be big one day and you're going to have this knowledge. And 2 little people make a big people, so a big person. So we always talk about partnering up and buddying up for CPR.
I love that. That is a huge success. So with success also comes failure. Do you have any failure? I always say you need to fail forward, and you might end up learning something from it. You always should learn something from every mistake that you make. But do you have maybe a story that you can point back to and say, well, that failed, but here I actually am, and I did something differently, and it actually helped out?
Well, we could be here for another month if I talk to you about all the failures, but I'll talk about an early failure. When I was a little kid, I always had to do everything that the older kids did. If I saw somebody do something, I thought I could do it. So there was a time where my mother and my brother and my sister were going to take a bike ride, and they were going to go pretty far outside of the neighborhood into the next town, and it was probably a good 5-mile round trip. And I asked to go, and my mother said, "No, you're too little." Well,
Oh boy.
have you ever been told?
All the time.
All
In
the
fact, I'm still too little to do things. I'm not very tall, so a lot of people are like, if I don't wear heels, they go, "Oh my gosh, you're smaller than I thought." I'm like, small but mighty.
Small but mighty. Well,
So that's
I
probably
was
how you felt.
small, right? I felt just like that, small but mighty, and I insisted, and I was pretty persuasive even from a young child. So I might have been about 5 years old, and I got on the bike, and we didn't get very far. We weren't even probably half a mile into the bike ride, and there was this big hill. And I said, "Oh, I can't do it. I can't do it. I need to rest. I can't do it." And my mother said, "No resting." She had told me before we left, "We will not be stopping." So I kept crying, and my family just kept going. And my mother said, "Okay, you can rest." And so I got off the bike, I picked a nice shady tree, and I brought my bike over and I sat down, and my family kept going. And I thought, here I was 5 years old being left in the middle of what felt like nowhere. And eventually, I picked up the bike and I started to chase my family, and my mom slowed down. She was very well aware of where I was, but they seemed pretty far ahead of me.
Yeah.
And when I finally caught up to her, I said, "You just left me." And she said, "I told you you could rest, but I didn't say you could stop." And I think that, obviously on my part, I didn't see it as a failure per se, but it was a very early opportunity to learn that even when things aren't going the way you think they should, or you think you want to stop, you should always keep going.
Wow, that is an awesome story for that. And if you think about it, I believe that every physical activity, 90% of that is actually mental. So you may not feel like you have the physical ability. I remember I had some friends say, "Oh, you should go on this hike." And I'm like, "I'm not a hiker. I practice yoga." And I literally ended up on the hardest team, and I actually slayed it because 90% of it really is mental. And I pushed myself, and it was up in the Tetons. So it was, an elevation hike. And I mean, it was really very, very physically grueling. But I made it through because I actually had set my mind to it. So a lot of times, I mean, not everything's that way, but a lot of it, you can exceed your physical abilities, which I think is what you ended up doing. And your mom taught you that at a pretty young age, which is amazing. So let's talk a little bit about balance, because I think as women, we really struggle. Some of us have kids, some don't have kids. I mean, you have kids that are outside of your home, actually, that you're caring for, but a lot of people have kids, that are at home, and then they're thinking, how do I balance having a career and being a mom, or being a friend or a wife, or all of these different things? How do you balance that? And by the way, I think for me, it's always been a kind of hit or miss. Sometimes I feel like I'm doing very well, and then other times I'm thinking, "Oh, I'm just failing at this." So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, sometimes I feel incredibly imbalanced, and other times, like you were saying, I feel very out of balance. And I think the trick is recognizing those times where you feel out of balance and doing the things that really move your soul and make you feel whole. And I'll give you, I guess, an example of that. So, I have just my husband and my son has always told me, "Mom, you're such a great dad." So we kind of joke. But I love cooking. But on those days I feel out of balance, and I call my husband on the way home. I say, "Well, what do you want to do for dinner?" We have a joke now. Don't tell me I don't know, or I had a late lunch, because I've just assigned those all a quick meal. So if you say I had a late lunch, you're getting a baked potato with some broccoli, right? And some cheese, especially if I'm not feeling up to cooking. But I think that on the weekends, when I have a little more time to myself, I take that time to make a favorite recipe, spend a little extra time in the kitchen, make something from scratch. Like last night I made homemade pizza from scratch.
Nice.
And it's something that brings the family together, right? My husband, because he has to do so many of the meals these days, he likes to come in and supervise. My son, he's the taster, although he's very good at cooking as well. So it's an opportunity for us to laugh, to see if something comes out okay, and then kind of think ahead for the rest of the week, and I think being proactive and thinking ahead really does help you stay in balance. But sometimes things just sneak up on you or the unexpected happens. But that's also the great part about what we do, right? As leaders, if it was the same every day and predictable, probably be bored.
Sometimes I look at my schedule and I go, oh my gosh, I'm going to be gone every night this week. And then back to your point, though, finding something that spending a little time doing something that you really love doing. Mm-hmm. And even if that's physical activity, and I don't know anyone that really loves to work out, but I think it helps your body and your mind find balance. And then I think you can handle more stress and more things that, are unexpected, because let's face it, life is unexpected. But I think, finding those moments where you can enjoy something is really, really important to do to really create that balance. So as a female leader, what do you think one of the most significant barriers have been in your career? Has it been you? Because a lot of women tell me, it's me. I'm actually my biggest critic, and I've stood in the way of my success. Mm-hmm. But maybe that's not for you. So why don't you share with us what that looks like for you as your barriers?
Mm-hmm. Well, I wouldn't say that's my barrier, because my mother always said, if you can dream it, you can do it, and don't let anybody tell you you can't.
I love that.
She also said, if a man can do it, a woman can do it. And my mom was born to an immigrant Italian father, and she was really kind of put up on a pedestal that she could, do anything she put her mind to. And she put that onto her daughters, like you, and her sons too, but really to her daughters, like, you are just the same. It doesn't matter your gender. And of course, coming out of that generation, women were just starting to break the glass ceilings in different jobs and going back to work and holding those CEO level positions. But for me, I never really thought about the challenges of being a woman until my current position. Mm-hmm. I remember I applied in National. It's the second oldest school district in the county, only behind San Diego Unified by 5 years. And in 153 years, they had never had a female superintendent. People told me, don't apply, you won't get the job. But my board, this current board, was brave. And they said, we're not going to only focus on where we've been. We're looking at the best person for us right now. And they chose me for the position. But I did hear a lot of chatter, especially in the beginning. This is my 8th year. I don't hear it as much, about the fact that they should have picked a man for the position. And so that really got me wondering and thinking about, what was it about being a woman? I actually had an interview with someone from the Union Tribune, and she said, what do you think is going to be different from your leadership than the traditional male leadership that has come before you? And I had a hard time with that question. I said, I don't know, maybe I'll have a table runner on my office table. I don't know.
That's funny.
But I think over the years I've learned, as a female, we do think of things a little bit differently. I think not saying for any male out there that men are not compassionate, but men tend to have a little bit more of a cutthroat when it comes to the CEO position. I think I approach it, and I think women approach it with a bit more compassion, which I think is very valuable in an educator.
See, the one word when, I'm kind of listening to you as you're speaking, I would actually say probably nurture, because when you're talking about kids and helping them become the best version of themselves and finding, success, and, I think there are a lot of studies out there that prove that when kids don't have those good experiences early on, it really affects them long term, for the rest of their lives. When they're feeling that they're cared for as they're learning and how they can succeed and really gaining that that confidence, I think it makes a big difference. And part of that is nurture. And I think women tend to be a little more nurturing. There are certainly some men that are nurturing, but I think as as a woman, I think that actually is something you bring to the table that no man can really bring to the level and the degree that you can. And you are very, very nurturing. I mean, I can see that about you.
Thank you.
I mean, honestly, I would say that would probably be the one thing that I would think. Just kind of talking about resistance with men in your career, have you had to deal with much of that, or is that something? I mean, just the discussion of why didn't they hire a man? That just wow, that's hard to believe that anyone would even think that.
Yeah, and like I said, that was back when I first got the job. I heard that, and I don't hear that anymore. We've done a lot of great work together, and I think seeing is believing, right? So we've accomplished a lot together as a school district, as a leadership team. My teachers are fabulous. And I've had students actually say to me, I'm going to grow up to be a superintendent, right? Little girls. And I think, girls need to be able to see other women in these roles so that they can dream it. You can't dream it if you can't see it.
True. I agree.
But I would say I don't feel the resistance so much now, but I'm more aware of it. I'm acutely aware of just all biases in our hiring practices, just to make sure that we not only look for the people that are most qualified, but the people who have or have not had opportunities. And so you could be missing out on some really great candidates and some great experience if you don't also consider people's what they've been able to experience along the way. And so we really have a lot of those conversations. I have a great team, and so I don't think I feel the resistance right now. Now, that's not to say if I switched jobs I wouldn't feel that.
Right.
But not so much now.
So let's talk about some life lessons that you've learned, or maybe just lessons that you've learned that you'd like young women to learn and apply to their careers.
Yeah, we've talked about some of them throughout this chat, but I would say dream big.
Yeah.
Don't put limits on yourself. Be open. Walk through doors. Listen to that calling. Don't make up your mind and only stay that course. If something else presents itself, be open to exploring it to see if that's the best for you. And regardless of how bad things get, don't ever stop.
Right. Don't you think, too, it's a good advice to explore when you feel like maybe something's a little bit uncomfortable? Don't you think that's where you really grow a lot?
I think, yeah, absolutely. I think my best growing has come from that feeling of, I'm not sure if I'm doing this right. You pay more attention. You don't make assumptions. You do a little extra research. You seek out mentors that can help you. And those are all the things that make us better. And, people say, I don't have an ego, or I think we all have an ego, right? But if you can put your ego aside and learn from others, whether they've had your position or not, sometimes some of my best learning comes from a child, right? Just looking at it through their lens, and you realize, wow, they're so unencumbered by the things that weigh us down as adults. And so I even have a student roundtable of
really. Well, tell me more about that. That's very interesting.
Yeah, so I have leaders from all the sixth grade classes. So every sixth grade teacher in the district gets to pick a leader. Sometimes they pick two. It just continues to grow every year.
Yeah.
And we meet about once a month. And the students are my colleagues. I get them all employee badges. We work all day on a Friday. We have a working lunch. We work on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. They help to implement Project Adam. It was something that was, the principals were feeling insecure about it. And the kids, I would train the kids and they'd go and they'd train the principals. And then the principals had this confidence because when a 12-year-old is standing next to you saying, it's okay, I got you.
Right.
I can help you. It just builds your own confidence as an adult. And so right now our students are working with San Diego State University to create and record a musical album around climate action.
Wow.
And they're actually doing it in conjunction with a school in Puerto Rico. So
that is really neat.
Yeah, it's pretty cool stuff.
And, I think, too, if you're mature enough to see this, we're going to learn until the day that we die. And whether that's from a younger person or an older person or someone that's the same age, I think there's always someone that has a contribution.
Absolutely.
And, when talking quickly about mentors, I think you can actually learn as much from people that maybe you look at their style and you go, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to ever be like that, than the people that you really look up to. And I think life and the way you do things is really taking a little piece from good things, from negative things. And that's why, resilience is really important too, and that's how you kind of reshape yourself and grow and become the best version of yourself, because I think that's always the ultimate goal, right? To gain more information and become who you're supposed to be.
And to say I'm the best version of myself today.
Right, exactly. So you walk into a room, young female leaders or women that want to be young female leaders, what would be the takeaway that you would just want them to really walk away and say, you know what, I learned something today?
Yeah, I would probably just encourage them to pursue whatever their passion is. Don't go for the job. Don't go for the job you think others want you to have or the job you think you want for yourself, but to really go for a job, a position, on something that drives you, that moves you, that you're passionate about, so that every day you wake up and you think, I get to do this, not I have to do this.
Yep. I love that. That's great advice. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really, and I love that last piece of advice too, because that really is important. Trying new things, getting outside your comfort zone, and really finding what drives you. And it might not be exactly what you thought originally.
That's right.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks again. Really appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you. It was great being on the show.
Now that was powerful. We hope you've been lifted and encouraged by today's inspiring voice. Always remember that life doesn't look exactly the same for each one of us. Never stop dreaming, striving, and thriving. In future episodes, we look forward to bringing you powerful stories from amazing women who learned how to lead in to challenges. Thank you for listening and being part of our community with SheEO host Rebecca Jones.